Hi, I'm Loretta and this is my sister
Sharon.
We are founders of the plant-based retreat, The Detox Barn, and we're also a comedy double act. I know, funny vegans. Shoot me now.
9 years ago, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease and got myself better using a plant-based diet. Since then, I've just fallen in love with living well.
I retrained as a natural vegan chef, and each week we'll be interviewing experts in the wellness industry, as well as sharing the highs and lows of trying to live well as single mums living together with our 2 kids.
How well have we lived this week?
Well, we were chatting earlier about boundaries, and for whatever psychological disturbed reason, Sharon and I aren't very good with them. And
you think that because I'm quite a big personality.
And we're quite strong women,
Yeah.
and we run our own business, and we're all for standing on your own 2 feet, and you don't need a bloke, and all of that malarkey. I've got to tell someone off.
Or have a difficult conversation. I hate that. Put your big girl pants on. I hate that. I don't know why. I absolutely hate that saying. It's like female entrepreneurs use it all the time, or women in business. Right, got to put my big girl pants on.
I hate the term women in business.
Yeah, even that. It just feels like,
Oh, I just realised I'm not wearing a bra. Anyway, doesn't matter. Women in business. Hang loose, why not? Women in business. What's that got to do with anything?
I don't know. Nobody's laughing but you. That's the weird thing.
I had a phone call this week, and basically I had to have not a difficult conversation, but an honest conversation. They were running these sort of events, really, and they're for the richest people on the planet, and they wanted me and Sharon to come and do a talk. And I was like, how much can we charge? You know, how much is it? Nothing.
I think we're so kind of pumped up in our lack of boundaries. They were like, right, no, I'm actually going to say something this time.
Yeah, that's exactly how I came on. So I'm not going to let someone take the mickey out of me, just turn up and do an event for free, especially when it's for the richest people on the planet. Anyway, so she said, she started going into this rant about, you know, it's mutually, I think her name was Sophie, and it's mutually beneficial. It's beneficial for you and it's beneficial for me because it's brand exposure, and you're going to be showing your brand to the richest people on the planet. I mean, how good is that? I mean, it's so exclusive. So I'm like, well, yeah, I mean,
Sounds fabby.
Sounds fabby, Susie. I said, but if they're the richest people on the planet, well, why can't they pay? I don't really understand.
How does this business model
And
work?
how is this
It works for you.
It doesn't work for me at all. How is it mutually beneficial? And she's thinking, well, the reason why it's mutually beneficial, it was like literally ChatGPT was coming out of her mouth. How to sell something for free. So then I said, okay. I said, potentially we could do it. Sounds like it's really good exposure. I said, but we'd just be charging for expenses. And she was like, well, I'm really sorry on this occasion that no expenses are included, because this is such a high-end gig. It's really, really worth you doing it, and we will feed you there, and you'll be able to network with these high net worth individuals. I can't think of anything worse than hanging out with rich twats. I mean, they're like the top 1% of the population. But then I got a bit, I thought, right, boundaries. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I said, this leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. You know, you want me to come and do an event for you, for the richest people on the planet, the top 1% who are getting chauffeur driven to an event, and you want me to speak for free. Would you work for free?
How many people are going to be at this event are we going to be exposed to?
12 people. That's what she said. But I really lost my rag, and it came across as bitter, angry and aggressive. This is where she got me. She went, I'm really sorry. You're coming across quite aggressive. And I thought I was coming across aggressive, but I couldn't wheel back then. I couldn't go back into nice Loretta's. Yeah, so I was just like, well, no, sorry, I didn't mean to be aggressive. It's just that it really does leave, and I started ranting again. A bad taste in my mouth, asking us to perform for free. I mean, I've got children to feed. Have you got kids? Do you know what it's like to be a single mum? And look, started doing the
mum card.
Yeah.
So obviously this boundary stuff, it spills over into kids, and you know, like rule number 1, isn't it? Like, kids need boundaries.
Yeah, and rule number 2 with kids is if you set a kind of punishment, you have to stick with it.
I don't like the word punishment.
What? No, not. What's the word? It's not punishment, is it? It sounds like something the old Victorian days. Like chained him to his bed and whipped him.
No, consequence.
Yeah, consequence.
Yeah, you can't use punishment.
No.
So what happens is like, you know, they really push the boundaries as kids do, and then they really take the piss out of us to beyond. So then what happens is we're dealing with it, we're coping with it, we're pushing it away, we're pushing it out. I can see you're frustrated. I can naming it.
I can see that you haven't had much sleep. That's fine.
I can understand that you're feeling this way, doing all this, and then they're still being so rude. And then what happens is that then I absolutely lose it. And then I'm like, that's it. So I go 360. I go, that's it. We're not going. We are not going. We're going to go to the skateboard park. I was going to bring you and drop you off and buy you lunch. Said, that is off. It's off. You can read. You can read for the afternoon. No devices. That's it.
And then I'm like, I back her up. I'm like, well done, Sharon. You needed that.
No, I really needed to do that. Because this is becoming, I really did need to do that.
No, you did. And that you've done the right thing. And then we can hear these sobs from his bedroom, you know, like wailing. And it doesn't die down.
No, and it doesn't take long. It takes me like literally 3 minutes, and I have like pangs of like pain. Like I've got too much empathy. It's like a curse.
And then Sharon's like, what do you think? Could we go for a bit?
Should we go for an hour?
Should we go? Like, I was going to take you for 3 hours, and now I'm taking you for an hour.
Yeah, like as if we've still got the boundary in place. Okay, you can go. You can go for a little bit.
Yes,
but we're not having lunch.
And I'm not going to talk to you while you're there.
Anyway, so that is why this week, Rachel Kelly's episode, The Gift of Teenagers, oh my God, it's so needed. It's so good. It's every parent's go-to Bible, basically. So tune in and listen to what she has to say.
Yeah, for any parent out there, if you want to learn how to deal better with your teenagers, because for me, I think teenagers are like a form of yoga. We could all become yogis after rearing teenagers. This episode is for you. This episode is sponsored by us, Gavin Sisters, and our very first product, Funky Coffee. It's triple certified.
Paid a fortune to sponsor this.
Yeah, we're paying ourselves.
Yeah.
It's triple certified organic Arabica coffee, and it's boosted with potent adaptogens. The health benefits are many, but don't just take our word for it.
Yeah, instead of us banging on about it, we decided to test our coffee out with our guests at the Detox Barn and take a listen to what they have to say.
They're not getting paid.
No one's getting paid here. Let's be honest.
So we've just served funky coffee at the Detox Barn. What did everybody think?
Coffee is delicious. Amazing. And it's not bitter, and it tastes like real coffee.
I was very sceptical, but absolutely it was stunning.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And did you find, because you had it yesterday, did you find you had a crash afterwards, or did you feel like you had sustained energy?
Sustained, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
They want to buy shares in the company. Okay, thanks everybody. For our listeners, you can get 10% off. Go to gavinsisters.co.uk and use the code podcast at checkout.
Hello and welcome to the podcast, Rachel. Your book, The Gift of Teenagers, is really just come at the most unbelievable timing for Loretta and I, who live together and we are raising teenagers together. So it's literally been like, honestly, like a Bible. I'm like, well, Rachel says this, Loretta, stop doing that. That's not what Rachel advises. So we've become a bit obsessed with the book and your work. I mean, even you the other day, Loretta.
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly show you this before we start.
Yeah.
I've been listening to your book on audio, and
Sure.
for some reason, every time I get into the car, it turns on. I don't know why. I don't know how to stop it, but it just does.
I told it to, yeah.
Anyway, so I get into the car. So I'm listening to your book in the background, and it's saying, be calm, remain curious. At the same time, I'm having an argument over WhatsApp with my daughter, going, I've told you no! How many times do I have to say no? And you go, remain calm, stay curious, open questions. And I thought it was like something from a sitcom. It was
like
so
the book
funny.
was winding her up as she
Yes.
was trying to find.
Yes.
It's like all these audio messages going back. So as you can tell, a very much needed book, not just for Loretta and I think for a lot of parents out there navigating it, because The world has changed. We've changed. Our parents, the way we were parented has changed. It's just, it is a minefield out there. So
Yes.
thank you. First and foremost, thank you for writing this book. It was honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. And I would love to just start with, and you do talk a little bit at the beginning of your book, but just to start with, like, what made you write this book? What were the elements that you thought, I'm going to write this book?
Well, I've been involved in writing about mental health since 2014. So my first book was a memoir about my own experience of severe depression, which I had in my 30s. And after that book, I was very lucky. It was a Sunday Times bestseller. And lots of opportunities came from that. So there's always a silver lining. And I became quite involved with a couple of mental health charities. I became an ambassador for SANE and Rethink Mental Illness. And then I became an affiliate at King's College Psychiatry Department. And I was in this sort of flow of broadly psychological well-being. And at that stage, I was looking much more at adults. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I began to get kind of messages saying, ooh, you know, finding life really hard. My teenagers finding life really hard. I'm finding life really hard. Teachers, parents, so quite a lot of messages online, doing workshops with the charities and going into schools, at that stage more talking to teenagers in schools, and just generally getting this sense of unease and life was tricky. And to your point, yes, that the world had just changed so much. And so I just thought, okay, I'd like to learn more about this. I want to know what the problems are and how can people navigate them. And in addition, I was at the tail end of raising my own teenagers. So I've got 5 children. And it was quite intriguing because the older 3 were sort of before the worst of the digital age and some of the problems. But my younger 2 just turned 21. They were really hit hard and they were finding life hard. And I was finding life hard. So in a way, it was a sort of, what's the opposite of a perfect storm? I mean, a perfect combination of all these different things. And it was almost like, right, okay, I'm going to focus on young people now and try and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, brilliant. And so, like, within the book, I mean, there's loads of, obviously, different sections. I think what was hitting me hard, you know, early on is, you know, is how we parent. You know, I had to kind of analyse how I parent and why I parent in such a way. So I think quite early on you talk about, you know, attachment styles, which I have become a bit obsessed with as I've got older and as I've become a mum. I didn't know anything about attachment styles until I went out with someone who talked about them, and then I started looking them up. And then as my son Carter has got older and he's obviously got a bit more autonomy, he's 13 now and travelling to and from school, I started to realise that I've got anxious attachment style in terms of worrying about him being safe. And I think you were saying you similarly had that, you're more on that scale.
Definitely.
And I was like, oh God, because I know I've got to do something about it, because I know it's like my issue and not his. You know, that kind of like, where is he? He's at a bus stop. He stopped at a bus stop. I mean, I'm not that bad. I have got better. But, you know, is something going to happen to him? Yeah. And like, why do I have that attachment style? And what can I do about it to trust that he's going to be okay?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we've had quite a similar journey. And I mean, I think I'm beautiful and young. I think I'm a little bit just sort of slightly along the road, and I'm still having to sort of learn and grow. But yeah, I mean, another reason I wanted to try and figure this all out is I'm also naturally very anxious.
Yeah.
A very anxious person, and naturally then an anxious parent.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was very anxious in the sense that I would constantly tell the children I loved them. So love you, love you.
I do that.
But I was always waiting for them to say love you back.
Yeah.
And then like, where's my love you?
Yeah.
So it's a huge topic, but if you wanted it in a nutshell, I'm trying to get to the place that I sort of love myself and I'm okay anyway. And I don't need this outward approval and affirmation.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of separation between us. And it's linked to attachment, but this idea of codependency, so sort of taking my mood off the child's mood. And so that's required a lot of quite deep work on my own.
Yeah.
The reason I call the book The Gift of Teenagers is I think where I've got to now, sort of having done a lot of 15 years of sort of continuous teenage parenting is that this is just such an opportunity. I'm not saying there aren't other ways to psychological growth, but because it's so intense, the teenage years, it really is this chance to kind of go deeper ourselves as parents and as people. So, as you know from the book, a lot of the first sort of third of the book is just looking at yourself and trying to work out those anxious triggers and what's going on, and sort of finding quite practical strategies actually to be with them. And I think that you're well on the way in the sense that you've got that self-awareness.
Yes, I've got that,
So I didn't even have that.
Yeah.
But can I just ask you something there? You said about the codependency. You know that kind of saying that you can only be as happy as your unhappiest child.
Yeah.
So like your mood being dependent on how they are. So would you define that as a kind of a codependency thing?
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that thing, you're only as happy as your unhappiest
do you?
child.
Okay,
Well, because I've got 5 children and one of them's always got a drama. I would be permanently unhappy if I bought into you're only as unhappy as your unhappiest child. More than that, I feel really strongly about this. Your best chance of being there for your child is not to be in a state yourself. And not to be overwhelmed and not to be unhappy. One of the biggest impacts, I think, of all the interviews I did with psychiatrists and adolescent psychiatrists and psychologists was one adolescent psychiatrist, and she had 3 stick figures. So mum, dad and teenager. And in a therapeutic context. And the mum and dad stick figures, for some reason, had fallen over. And the teenager was completely traumatised and in such a state because a troubled teenager, or a teenager finding life difficult, has got so much going on for them. They literally can't cope if we're overwhelmed as well. So there are lots of reasons why we don't want to go into being as unhappy as them. It's jolly tricky. It's jolly tricky.
Florence will say to us, like, because both of us are quite emotional. I'm very empathetic, but it's probably too much. So she will literally go to me, you could never be like a psychiatrist or a coach because whenever anyone talks, you start crying and it's really annoying and it's too much. And I get it, but I feel their pain so greatly, but it's about kind of, that signal to them is that, oh my God, they're worried about me now.
Yes,
if they're
and I can't cope.
I can't cope, and now they can't
I've
cope.
got to look after them, and I'm just trying to manage myself. And if my mum's in pieces, then where do I go with that? But I'm very emotional myself, so I'm not, I think there's something lovely about being sympathetic and being in touch with your feelings. I think where I got to on that, and I did a lot of work on that because I think a lot of sadness can come up as a teenage parent, quite a lot of anger, that it can be really difficult. And I've done a lot of work on sort of being present to those feelings, kind of allowing them, doing some of the breathing exercises, not necessarily seeing them as fixed. So people often use the image of like a mountain with the clouds being your thoughts passing. But quite like that with feelings as well. But if you're present to them and you don't try to fight them, but then you can't force outcomes. So you can be with the feelings. So you in floods of tears, you can't really stop that.
No.
But then you don't necessarily have to do the next stage, which is actually acting on it or trying to make anything happen because of it. It's almost like deal with your feelings. And maybe go in a different room.
That does help.
And not in front of them. Just keeping that space. Because I've got a chapter in there on the teenage brain, and one of the aspects of it is they are super sensitive. More sensitive than us, which is actually rather lovely. But you've got to watch it because they do pick things up.
So you say that the way that we parent is often a reaction to how we were parented ourselves. So how does that play out? How does that work?
Well, one idea is that you either mirror how you were parenting, so it's called a replicative script, when you basically do more or less the same, or you do the opposite, which is you do nothing at all, like how you were parented. And the sort of healthiest psychological script is supposed to be a sort of midway course, which is that you take the best of how you were parented, but you adjust to, you drop the stuff that was trickier for you. you know, look, it's a huge topic. I mean, self-awareness is the start of it. I can give you a couple of examples, sort of in my case. So my mother was very loving in certain ways. There's a great book, The Languages of Love. I'm sure you know it, The Five Languages of Love. So she was brilliant at doing things for me. She'd go to the library and get me the book I needed for school, and she'd pick me up. But she was not physically expressive with her love. And I later understood there was some trauma in her story, which was actually really helpful because I understood where that was coming from. But it meant that I wanted to correct that with my children. So I've tried to make an effort to be sort of physical affection being one of the love languages, and an important one. And, you know, that's just a way that I've tried to parent differently. But hey, you know what? I'll have been making other mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you want to get away from this idea you're going to do it perfectly.
Yeah.
But just being aware of, you know, how your parents were with you.
Yeah.
And just being open to those, you know, that sort of exploration in your own mind of, well, you've got the same parents, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
we've talked about
yeah.
So we've
I
talked
think
about
I
this,
think
yeah.
in my head, I kind of feel like I want to be my daughter's best friend.
Right.
But the more, the older she's
You
getting,
don't want to be her best
I
friend.
do. I
You
want
wanna be-
us to be best buddies. That's what I've had in
You
my
want
head.
to be close to her.
I want to be
Well, we
close.
had a mother that was, we weren't particularly close to her.
Well, I suppose that she was busy. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? You know,
yes.
like we've got more time. We're more invested. She
Yes.
was the nurse working nights. There's 4 of us. We're lunatics. You know, there wasn't much time.
Yes.
And for me, I was like, my daughter, I want us to be like this. She'll always turn to me, la la la. But the more I'm sort of learning is actually they need boundaries more than they need your friendship.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find that really difficult. I think I allow too much.
We allow too much. I think we have generally got this really lovely home where we all have a great time, and you know, Loretta and I really value humour, and that's kind of our language, I suppose, at home. And it can be really useful. It can help diffuse. It can help.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
but I do feel like we hate when they're upset. So then, like, if I put in a boundary going, right, that's it, you're not going out all weekend. Not that I'd ever do that, but whatever boundary I try to put in, you know, or either one of us would then turn to each other going, she seems really upset. Do you think we should just let her go for a bit? I mean, she seems really... And then we might go back going,
you
okay.
can go for an hour.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
But I know that's not particularly helpful.
I quite agree. And then you backtrack on
Yeah.
what you've agreed, and then sort of everybody's in a muddle. And
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I mean, I think one of the things I became really interested in is not being overly responsible for other people's feelings.
Yeah. I'm really bad at that.
Which is so hard because, of course, you know, when somebody's upset, you want to jump in and sort it all out. But the thing is, there are some costs to doing that, is that, like, you can't go to psychological gym for them.
Yeah.
So sometimes that, you know, just stepping back a bit and actually... It's not a bad thing, them experiencing some strong feelings of their own. And if you have been an example and a model of someone who also can cope with their feelings and has got some, you know, tricks to emotional regulation, whether that's staying present, using some of the breathing techniques, you know, naming it to tame it so that it's not so overwhelming. Like, instead of saying, I'm sad, I am feeling sad, which gives you a separation between the emotion. So... yeah, I think that's a big thing that I do believe, which is that we cannot be responsible for their strong feelings. And back to the teenage brains, they do have very strong feelings.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but maybe it's to switch it around. So a lot of the book is trying to switch around what are classically seen as negative stories to turn them into positive. So instead of thinking, oh, you know, I'm not giving her a hug and a cup of hot chocolate and being there for her feelings, which, of course, there are times when, of course, you should do that. And there isn't always, you know, hard and fast guidelines. But to turn it into a positive way, which is that sometimes them being able to learn to look after themselves and regulate their own emotions is just super good for them.
Yeah.
And I remained very dependent on my mum, probably into my 40s. And then I slightly turned on her because it's kind of like, you know, I didn't really ever decide anything on my own.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said for them becoming autonomous and learning to, you know, address their own thinking styles and their own emotions. There's a lovely poem which sort of sums it all up by an American Lebanese poet called Khalil Gibran. He says, your children are not your children. They're the fruits of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but they're not part of you. And you're like a bow from which the arrow shoots forth, and you must be the bow that's stable from which the arrow shoots forth.
Yeah.
And maybe one final thought on that is that through this very sort of intense period, I don't really believe in this idea of the sort of empty nest and you're losing them.
Yeah.
You're not. What you're actually doing is you're forging a new relationship, adult to adult.
Yeah.
And that may end up, you said you wanted to be a really great friend.
Yeah.
And you may well end up in that place.
Yeah.
She just wants to go to spas with her.
What, my dear?
She wants to go to spas
Well,
with her.
yeah, I mean, I go to spas with, my daughters are in their 20s, but there's a stage earlier on when they need to separate.
Yes.
That there's this phrase called, this guy called Eric Erickson, who had this phrase called individuation.
Yes.
And it's just about that thing of, in a way, they've got to go away before they can come back.
Yeah.
But you can honour those feelings, it is sad when they don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not going to suddenly have these strong feelings. You would love it, but they may want to go off with their friends.
Yeah.
I suppose it's about remembering to be adult about it, because sometimes I find myself entering her world.
Yeah.
If we've had an argument, I'll go to my room and shut the door and go, right, that's it, I won't talk to her now. I'm like, what am I doing? You
don't. You always come back.
I
and
do,
make
but I do
up
for a
and-
minute. I feel that sting in my stomach, and
Yeah, but we are human. We're
no, I
allowed
know,
to
but
feel-
it's like your yoga. They're like your yoga.
But I would say that there's no such thing as a mistake. So
No.
even going to your room in a hissy fit, it doesn't, in a way, there's a whole disaster we've gone on trying to be perfect as
Yes.
well. And there's a chapter in it in the book, which is that this whole perfectionist thing. So in a way, almost, the more mistakes you make, the better. I
And
made
I'm good
so
at,
many mistakes.
I'm good
I
at
think you're
owning
making
my
some more.
mistakes. I'm
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
at going back and saying, look, I didn't behave well.
Yeah.
And I've looked at how I behaved, and I'm not happy with that, and I want to apologise. So I am good at doing that.
Yeah,
But also the-
Philippa Perry, she's got that rupture and repair, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Which is, there's rupture, but
Yeah.
you can repair.
And it's the adult that always has to go, and I think you said that in your book as well, I've read it elsewhere as well, as the adult, that you're the one that goes to apologise and make up. So you help the relationship heal, because then they don't have that capacity.
You
necessarily.
you have probably got more bandwidth.
Than they have.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, and this will really make you laugh as well, I was reading out some of the questions. So Loretta and I both did some questions, and we were just doing some brainstorming before we met you. And my son was in the kitchen, so he was half listening. And I was talking about bullying, and I was going, Loretta, we really shouldn't go in and rescue, even if they were being bullied. And he chimed in. He was in the kitchen, she was in the back room, Florence, and he was like, yeah, Mum, you really need to take this woman's advice. He goes, you need to stop getting
Really?
involved. Yeah, and then Florence you do that. You do that. They both started.
Really?
Because, well, there was something that happened recently where one of his friends was so upset because they'd had a bit of an argument that his friend had texted me directly.
Right.
And I had then gone to Carter to say, look, he's really sorry. I really think you should give him another chance, or whatever it was. So there was evidence of me. He was going, yes, you got involved and you get involved. And I was like, oh my God, and in the end, I didn't have an answer for them. I couldn't say I don't ever do that. I ended up saying, I'm working on it. But
Well, again, you
but
have
that
to be
rescue, I
perfect.
find that really difficult.
Yeah.
And luckily, I haven't experienced my son being bullied or Florence being bullied. But if they were, are you saying that the evidence or the advice is that you still don't get involved?
Look, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, obviously, if it gets really extreme,
yes,
everything's on a sort of spectrum.
Yeah.
So if it gets really, really extreme, and sometimes it can get violent, and some of the bullying is really physically violent.
Yeah.
So yes, you might have to be involving the police or teachers or.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it's an interesting thing in a way, which is, I suppose there's the practical things about sometimes you're going to have to get extra help.
Yeah.
It's just like if a teenager has got serious mental health problems, you might need to be getting support and extra help. I suppose what I would think would be sort of emotionally and energetically and cognitively, even if you need the extra help, it's still advisable if you can stay as much as possible in a kind of calm state.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It just de-dramatizes it, and
Yeah.
it just decharges it. It winds down the drama of it,
Yeah.
which is really important because that gives the bullied teenager a kind of perspective and a kind of hope. And also there's that idea that you can very much concentrate and focus energetically again, but also what you actually say about their strengths.
Yeah.
So we want to get them to step out of feeling like they're absolutely a victim and there's nothing they can do. No, we believe in them. They've got strengths. And there are practical things you can do,
Yeah.
trying to encourage other friendship groups and,
Yes, yeah.
or there are some practical things. But I think a lot of it is just really having that faith in them. One of the workshops I did on bullying, so obviously there's sort of stuff with my own children, but then some of the stuff from schools. And a 15-year-old was talking about how he'd been bullied. And he said that the very best moment with his mum was that he'd been bullied by the boys in the year above him. And then the boys in the year below him started bullying him as well. And they were in a car, which is obviously quite a good time, side-by-side
Yeah.
conversation. And she just started laughing. And she said, oh, God, that's just ridiculous. Can't believe it. I can't believe the youngsters have started now too. And 6 months later, things were better. And he reflected that that was the best moment in the car, was just her...
And not going, oh my God, what are we going to do? Yeah.
Because that just amplifies it and it
Yeah.
sort of like
Yeah, yeah.
dramatises it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get back to this sort of psychic calm for ourselves and obviously for them. And you know all that stuff. I'm sure you know all that stuff about sort of co-creations and energetically. And we've got studies and research on this, which is that how you are does affect the people around you.
Yeah.
And it's not woohoo, this
No,
business
that's not.
of your
Yeah.
your kind of
Yeah.
equilibrium and your mood.
But you know, don't you, as soon as you walk into a room,
Yeah.
like, not forget about kids, just even like an adult or a family member or a brother or a mother, you just sort of go, whoa,
Yes.
this is really uncomfortable and I don't even know why.
Yes.
It's just an energy thing.
Yes. Yes.
So you do feel that, don't you?
Yes. And I've got the word now, the scientific word. I think it's called co-regulation.
Right.
In fact, it is called co-regulation.
Yes, yeah.
And so the idea is we regulate. It's our evolution. We regulate as a species together. So that feeling of belief and support and calm and confidence is what they pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the opposite is true as well. So when you react badly or you're hysterical, you can feel the whole household. You can feel
Yeah.
this kind of fever pitch of tension.
Yeah.
It just takes one
You
person.
obsess each other off.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
We're like
Yeah.
dogs, you know.
Yeah.
Literally.
Sometimes
yeah.
it can be like that.
A nice example of how I sort of changed, partly by researching the book and just because of myself, was that I used to scream upstairs and say, dinner! And I'd have different dishes on the table because, of course, they all wanted different things, etc., etc. And I would be hot and bothered and annoyed. And then I would scream again and no one would come and I'd scream again. And so meal times were an absolute disaster. And then I did all this regulating work and this breathing work and some of this imaging work and, rethinking what was actually in my interests as well as theirs and that they were aligned. So me being calm and well and happy was in their interests. So I only call up once, quite quietly, because when you shout at a teenager, that triggers their threat system.
Yeah.
So I'd just say, dinner. I'd get a copy of Hello, my favourite magazine. I'd settle down with a glass of homemade lemonade, my favourite drink, because I don't drink. And I'd have dinner on the table and I would start.
You'd start eating.
Yeah.
And what if they never came?
You know what? I've never known a teenager isn't hungry.
Right, yeah, okay.
And
They eventually come.
What is interesting is the less you push it,
Yeah.
the more they come.
Yeah.
And it was an adjustment because first they couldn't understand what was going on.
Mum's been really weird.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? If they didn't come, fine.
Yeah, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm
they'll be
gonna
hungry in the
let's try
morning.
that.
Because you're always telling me if someone's going,
She
Carter!
screams Carter for bedtime.
I'm not angry.
It's not, but it's just like...
He likes to watch something with me last thing at night. We always watch something together, usually Modern Family.
Yeah.
Oh
For like
yeah, that
5
is very
years in a
good.
row. We've watched it back to back. But anyway, I think he my son's ADHD, and I think he finds kind of going to sleep slightly anxiety inducing. So he likes, this is a little ritual. So, but I'm always shouting down, going, Carter, you're coming up, Carter. She's like, would you stop screaming his name?
But what does that feel like to you? Do you feel good screaming Carter? Or you're not even thinking about it?
I'm not really thinking about it. I'm
You're
not
not thinking about it. You're not thinking about anyone else either.
I'm not thinking about it. I'm just like, I know he'll zone out for the first 3. He might hit the 4th. So I'm not really thinking about it. But I do know what you're talking about with the dinner. Like we've cooked dinner.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I've called them 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go, it's not just me.
No.
You'll be like, it's dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm going to try that.
It's hard because it's countercultural, and it's subtle because it's not the same as we don't want boundaries.
Yes.
And we don't need to be careful around quite a lot of areas of modern life, and we can come to good ways to do that. So it's not the same as saying there aren't occasions when you do need to talk seriously, as it were.
Yeah.
But there are occasions when you can just step back from being in that kind of trying to make things happen kind of mode.
So what would you do if your teenager was...
This isn't therapy, Loretta.
No, I know, but I just want you're like my God, you're my guru.
Got imposter syndrome.
But what would you do if your teenager was hanging out with people that you felt weren't good for them or could lead them down a bad path?
Or got into a bad relationship.
Yeah, how would you navigate that?
Like some red flags at that kind of like, oh dear, whether it's female friendships or a relationship, you sort of go, that's not good. What would you do?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is, it's part of my general philosophy. We want to dial down the drama. We don't want to make it too much of a big thing. So I would say as a first step, you don't want to demonise things.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get things out of proportion. We want to kind of not necessarily give too much significance and too much focus. So, famously the drugs campaign in America about, just don't do any drugs. In a way, the more you focus on the negative, you're giving your attention to what is the problem. And I would turn it around, and what we want is to almost not give them too much focus, not give the problem too much focus, but turn it around in terms of, first of all, I've already said first of all, second of all, that they're part of the solution. So what feels good to them? Does it feel good to them to hang out with the bad guys? Probably, if they're being honest and you have an open sort of relationship. I'm sure you've got really good communication. I'm sure you do. Most parents do actually communicate pretty well. If they're really honest, they probably have got some reservations themselves. So I'm sure you know that film, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
And the gist of it, as far as I remember, is that it's all about making it their idea. I think she wants to marry the guy, and she makes it the guy think it's his idea, or is it the dad's? I can't
remember. It's so long ago.
Yeah. But remember, so the teenage brain is really keen on autonomy. That's a big thing that's happening for them. So in terms of sort of pivoting away from toxic relationships, I think it's a combination of more focusing on where the good things is, so like the good relationships, but also engaging their autonomy. So having that kind of conversation, how does this person make you feel? Do you feel safe with them? Because physical safety can be a real problem. And just trying to have that sort of open conversation and getting them to own whether they're really truly comfortable in those relationships. And they may well not be, but not have had that kind of feeling of ability to sort of, talk about it openly. And then, trying to introduce as best you can, the good guys and the good relationships. So it takes a village to raise a child. And I think a lot of parents find that the world is very atomised and they feel on their own. And whether you can build that community with other parents at school or the local sports club, or, find a really decent mentor who, teaches them how to box, or give them the positive. So focus on the positive rather than demonising the negative.
It's interesting.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. It was interesting, when we were navigating some of this stuff and we were a bit worried, when we tried to talk about it, they really did shut down.
Yeah.
And it became like an impossible subject.
Yeah.
I mean, they navigated themselves out of it. Funny as you
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
They did get there.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of judgment, and if you go into right wrong,
Yeah.
and they're wrong, and you're wrong for hanging out with them. And one bit of research that I was very struck by, because it so resonated with the teenagers I was talking to, is this thing about shame. So if you trigger shame, they're just going to walk away from you, and you're not going to have that communication. So you want to get away from those guys are wrong, you know, as my point about demonizing them, and just sort of also that you're not doing it in a judgmental way.
Yeah.
You're not judging them. You're actually trying to help them navigate, as you say, and they may well get there on their own.
Yeah, they did get on there on their own. So that brings me on to which we talked about a little bit before we started, chatting live, is a bit, and I think you said there's no right or wrong way of doing this. I think I have done it wrong. But because Loretta and I are quite passionate about non-drinking, and we're not naive enough to think that our teenagers aren't going to drink, but because it's such a celebrated drug, it's endorsed, it's celebrated, it's glamorized. I feel like we really are fighting against the tide here with this. The main messaging that they're getting really from the wider world is that it's great. So at home, they're getting a message from Loretta and I. I mean, we're obviously modelling the behaviour as well, and we're always like, look how happy we are, we don't drink, we're never in a bad mood, all of that. But I think we've probably been at fault at slightly demonising alcohol and sort of going to them. We haven't gone like, we've not gone, we know that, we've not said you can never drink, obviously, because we know they are, but we've shared the dangers of teenage drinking, the likelihood of addiction, up from 13, that there's science around that.
Sure.
But we've talked very negatively about alcohol, how we know the science, we know it's carcinogenic, we know this, we know that. But I think from what you're saying and from reading the book is that could sort of push them towards it.
Well, again, I think it is partly to do with tone and communication. So sometimes it's not so much what you say, but it's how you say it. And there are good times to have these sorts of conversations. There was a nice bit of evidence about 9 o'clock being this golden moment because of their circadian rhythm. So they get up later, they're more alert later. We're winding down. We tend to be less bossy and strident because we're thinking of going to bed. And it can be a perfect moment when it triggers their autonomy, when they choose to come and talk to you. And so sometimes messaging around difficult areas, drink, drugs, pornography, social media. I mean, I think that's one way to sort of address it, is be careful when you have these conversations. So timing's important, tone's important. So back to where we were, like being calm and steady and not shouting. I'm sure you weren't shouting, but just how you share that information. I think probably what seems to be most effective, and this is sort of, again, a combination of research and lots of interviews and things, is we want to just sort of be quite factual. Without being too emotional. And because you feel strongly about it, I mean, I'm sure you've done it beautifully, but I know in my own experience, sometimes when my own emotion gets into it. So I give you a good example. I did really well, I think, and again, combination of sort of research and experience, but some of the conversations about ketamine, which is a big issue for young people, it's quite powerful in a rather sort of low-key way to talk about what happens to a bladder when you start taking ketamine and how it shrinks and how you become incontinent. And it's almost like, it's quite dramatic. And to your point, some of the information about drinking is actually quite dramatic. I mean, accidents and A&E. I mean, if you go to A&E on Saturday night, it's not really alcohol. It's not really drugs. It's going to be. You can go a long way, functioning, taking quite a lot of drugs, but drink on a Saturday night, you're ending up in A&E, violence and accidents, and it's sort of. So it's almost like counterintuitively, you don't need to be very dramatic. Because actually, it is quite dramatic, the reality, and I think you have to just present the information in quite a straightforward way. And then I suppose what I would say is really you're 6 steps back, because by the time you're having these conversations, there's lots of other ideas in the book about building a connected relationship and how you're going to do that and staying close to them. And they have a really strong desire to stay connected with you. And I think one of the other really effective ways of talking about problem areas, you might say, is to own it as an individual. So I do worry about this.
Yeah.
If we've agreed you're coming home at 11 and you're not there, I will stay up and I will not be able to go to work tomorrow and I will have a rotten time. And it's delicate, because on the one hand, we're not trying to be friends, but we are trying to appeal to their adult side and their autonomy side. And you're a human being too, and so are they. And it's almost like let's treat you in a quite a sort of kind of grown up way here, because this is quite grown up stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because even recently, my son, he's only 13 and he's quite a young 13 and he looks really young as well, but he was going to like the fun fair after school with his friends, and they probably weren't going to get back till like 7:30, 8. And because I'd listened to your book about those let's set some clear
and
rules.
you did it ahead.
And I was like going, just text me when you get there, and then just text me when you're leaving, so I won't worry. I said, that's all you need to do. You can have a great time. Just do those 2 things. And he did do those 2 things.
Nice.
And it really meant a lot. And I was
so
like,
pleased.
I'm not fretting the whole time. He's texted me and he's back now and I can relax.
Yeah.
So it's just about setting those rules up as they get older and they're going to be going out more.
I think it's really effective. Lots of evidence about, if you set the rules together and you discuss them together, and look, this would be reasonable for me. Is that reasonable for you?
Yeah.
The last thing I think, which I loved the research, was this thing about the Pygmalion effect. Sometimes it's called the Rosenthal effect. And it's basically all about expectations. So it's sort of give a dog a bad name. But basically, if you expect, decent behaviour and following the rules, whatever you've decided, and if you have that expectation of them, and if you believe in them, they're much, much more likely to behave like that.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah,
actually.
I like that.
So it's so positive.
Yeah, I really like that.
And I absolutely loved it. And it's again, you have to do the work so you really believe it.
Yeah,
You can
fake
pretend.
it. No.
But if
I
you're
know you're going to make the right choices.
yeah.
Stressed.
But again, it's a really lovely thing, because I think having had children over such a long period, I got better at it with the younger ones.
Yeah.
Which is I was much more panicky with the older ones.
Yeah.
With the younger ones, I did really believe that they were responsible.
Yeah.
And on the whole, they were. And again, final point, I suppose. I keep saying final point. But, if it goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. Rupture and repair.
Yeah.
And if you're modelling saying sorry, they can model saying sorry.
Yeah.
And if they've learnt from that, and if for example, they haven't followed the boundary and they have kind of effectively not, let you down, you can own it and just say, I actually found that really hard.
Yeah.
And hopefully you do have a strong connection with them.
Yeah.
And again, back to the teenage brain, while they've got this thing for autonomy and peer pressure is really strong, so they do really want to make, hang out with their peers, there's lovely stuff. They do want to stay connected to us.
Yeah, yeah.
We do really matter to them.
Yeah, I
and
see
there's
that.
surveys
Yeah.
about that,
Yeah.
So in a way, it's just having that confidence.
Yeah.
You're not going to be written out of the picture.
Yeah.
Have you read the work by Gordon Nuffield?
Haven't actually, but I should. Yeah, tell me.
I think you'd like it. So we actually interviewed him for our podcast, and he's written a book called Hold On to Your Kids.
He's co-written it actually with Gabor Mate.
Oh, I do know. It's a brilliant book.
Yeah, I think
so. He talks a bit
Yes.
like that, and actually he
Yes,
talks
he's
about
brilliant.
peer orientation and the fact
Happening
that
too soon before you're ready
Yes.
with the brain. I loved it.
Yes.
I was hugely influenced by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, in the end, his approach to social media, which is that think what's behind it. And the strong lure of it is connection. So your teenager's going to go straight for it if you haven't invested in that strong connection with you.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is it it isn't really rocket science. It's kind of showing up. And there were some lovely ideas in that book, which I shamelessly borrowed.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're really good. They're like letting in friends by the front door.
Yeah.
It's like, and even if you haven't got that much time, if you're a working mum, it's like really focusing, putting your phone down, the 5-minute chat.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways you can stay close and connected.
Because I remember you talking about in your book as well. He calls it like collecting your kids. So when they're younger, you collect them. They're young. You're like, hi, how is school? And they're 3 and they're 4 and they're jumping into your arms. And then how do you do that as a teenager? And you know, Loretta and I we still do it. And it's interesting you say about the 9 o'clock because that's when I'm tired. But we always did this thing when they were younger. We would do before bed. We'd always do very, very creative play, and me and Loretta would be characters.
We didn't call it creative.
No,
play.
but it
We
is.
sound like
It
complete
was
wankers.
No,
we did creative play.
No, but it was that without kind of sharing exactly what you used to do because it just sounds really silly. But we would like become characters and play these sort of games with them, like character games. But obviously, as they got older, we're not going to be doing that. So we had this thing called the bedtime chat, which was. Before bed, they'd all come in and we'd all just talk about the day or share funny stories.
Lovely.
Now, as they got a bit older, sometimes they didn't always want to do it, but I have found, and it is around 9 o'clock. Yeah. And Florence, who became a bit more, I don't want to do a bedtime chat, you know, she started to really crave it. And she comes in, bouncing in around 9, and I'm like really tired. That's my wine zone. But she wants to chat.
Well, that's it's so interesting because it's a bit like therapy. So one of the ways therapy works is you have a regular slot. So you don't have to reinvent it all the time.
Yeah.
And naming things and creating these rituals. So we had this thing, special day.
Yeah.
So special day, every now and again they had a special day. And that was their day. And they knew that I would really be focusing them. And all it meant is we'd go for a coffee. But what was interesting is that they would save up a conversation because they knew that this special day was coming along.
Yeah,
and I called it a special
lovely.
day, but it was just, as I say, it was just going out for a coffee or whatever they wanted, really. They got the power to choose.
Yeah.
But it was something about the regularity and not having to invent it.
Yeah.
And the ritual is very reassuring. He calls them collecting rituals, doesn't he? He had a thing, I think he took his daughter for lunch, for dinner, or was it his son?
Yeah.
He had a thing that once a week he would go out for a meal with one of his...
That might have been Gabor Mate, actually.
I think it was Gabor Mate.
Yeah, it was.
Because he felt he'd lost
Yes,
connection.
that's right. Yeah. And I said that to you recently because Florence in particular loves going out for dinner. I mean, you've got to have money. But I was sort of saying it's a really nice thing because she loves it and you love it and you get that time just together.
Yeah.
But it also... You know, when we were struggling, we were going through a difficult patch. You know, his book was really timely as well. The whole collecting your kids was. I mean, he even said, you know, if you've got money, like if you're really struggling, like throw money at it and like go on holiday. And when we were struggling, we just went on holiday, and we found that when we went on holiday and we were doing really fun things, it got so much better. You know, we felt like we'd reconnected at that time. When we'd go back, it would slightly slip. Now it's actually all right. It's kind of, it was just a phase. But at that time, that book was really helpful because I thought we cannot lose connection because the peer orientation is becoming very strong.
And it's happening much too soon because of social media before their prefrontal cortex isn't developed. So they're not good at, and there's all that risk-taking stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily making good decisions about where those connections should be.
Yeah.
I love that. I had a thought and it's gone from me. What was I going to say about? What were you saying just before then?
I was saying about the bedtime chat, the 9 o'clock.
Yeah, the ritual thing.
Yeah, doing it every night. Like not every night. Yeah.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. So I think another thing that I learned was in terms of communication and reading things, which is that behaviour is often a form of, well, it's always a form of communication. So if they're playing up and they don't seem to want to connect, and you feel you're losing that closeness, there's almost certainly something going on for them, and it's probably nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And underneath that behaviour, that desire for connection is still there.
Yeah.
So it's sort of not
So what
seeing
do you do?
well, it's not seeing the behaviour as personal about you.
Yeah.
And then, all the things we're talking about to sort of re-establish that connection, because that longing is there underneath it. It's just... You know, maybe they're being bullied, or maybe there's some tricky
Just a
stuff,
bad
or
day,
they're feeling pressure at school, or they feel you've got an expectation which they can't meet.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. If you do surveys, which I've done, and you ask a group of teenagers what their issues are, they're not the same as what the parents' issues are.
Yeah.
So, you know, classic parents, we all are very worried about social media, but that's about number 6 if you ask a bunch of teenagers. So number 1 issue for teenagers, and this is partly research in schools, is exam pressure.
I was going to come on to that.
Yeah, so sometimes if there are feelings like a disconnection, you know, maybe they think, you know, you're got all these high expectations and maybe they're not going to be able to, or they feel they're not going to be able to achieve in the way that you want them to achieve. So there may be something going on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they don't actually want to kind of get back close to you.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about exam pressure, and I think by the time this episode comes out, I think a lot of people will probably be getting their GCSEs and their A-level results.
Yes.
And Sharon and I have talked about this. I mean, you know, it's changed so much since we've been at school. I can't believe how much pressure is on children.
Yeah.
But also with social media and parents sharing what children have got or what they've done.
Or achievements, like posting about it.
How do you take that pressure off your children and navigate around
or not let it
that?
seep onto you?
Yeah.
Like, because this is a big topic as well. Like, our parents, we had no
really,
pressure.
yeah.
Didn't give a shit.
No.
I mean, I sort of think I wish they had a bit of pressure. I was just like mucking about the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's so gone the other way. I mean, we're not like that with our children, but it does. It's in what's the word? Insipid. It creeps up on you a little bit when you read that post or the 9 A's or the this or the job.
Sure.
It does creep it. There is a competitive, unspoken thing, I think, with parents of this generation.
100%. And it's a very interesting point because I'm sure you've come across this Jonathan Haidt book called The Anxious Generation, and it's nominally about young people. But actually, I think it's the anxious generation as the parents.
Yeah.
The parents just gone off the charts on anxiety.
Yeah.
So in a way, partly I wrote the book for parents and teachers because I think we've got to get our own house in order.
Yeah.
So specifically on exams, I think there's a couple of points. I mean, I think it's funny because I do post on Instagram, and most of my films don't get that many views, but one went, I don't know, they call it viral.
No, celebrate
it. Well, I was feeling quite emotional, and I just said, look, you know, tell your children, and I'm going to get emotional again, but just tell your children they were perfect the moment they were born. They do not have to do anything to earn your love. I mean, they are loved and lovable and loving, and they were from the moment they were born.
Yeah.
And everything else is just a sort of distraction.
Yeah.
And so just kind of constantly, and we talked about the 5 languages of love. So starting from that position that there is nothing transactional. There's nothing they have to do to earn your love or respect or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few practical things. I mean, I think one really big lesson, which I'm trying to learn myself, is just to try and be process-driven rather than results-driven.
Yeah.
So if they can learn to somehow try and enjoy intellectual endeavour, the interest of schoolwork, you know, curiosity, and be present and in the process of doing it, as opposed to being obsessed about results. It's tricky because, of course, it's all very well, and, you know, you can just say, well, exams don't matter. They don't think that.
No,
so
they don't.
it's not going to work just to say it doesn't matter. They're very worried. Again, if you ask teenagers what they're worried about the cost of living. They're worried about getting jobs. So they are worried about exams. So to diminish their worries doesn't help. But there are ways of just strengthening that unconditionality about your love.
Yeah.
And in a way, slightly taking you out of this process, which is, yes, they've got relationships at school, university, their jobs, but you are just there and you just always love them.
Yeah.
And if you, as I say, if you can get them to be more process driven, there's quite a nice bit of work. So telos is the Greek word for goal. And our society is goal driven. And oh my God, I'm so goal driven. And I'm so done with being goal driven.
Yeah.
It's just exhausting.
Isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've not been productive today.
Exactly. And the thing is that if they can learn that quite young, they're going to have the most incredible lives.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've taken till I'm about 60 to sort of give quick goals. But actually, if you can enjoy the process, and I have to do it with my own books, I do not look at sales figures.
Yeah.
because it's just going to drive me mad.
Yeah.
But I like writing the books, and I like researching them, and I love doing a podcast, and I love
Yeah.
having a chat. So I can be in the process.
Yeah.
And that's just such
good
Yeah.
advice.
a good philosophical...
Yeah. It's
And
such good
making it
advice.
positive. So if you... Probably a theme underlying a lot of the things I've been saying is always pivoting to focusing on where the good bit is. So it's good to enjoy the process rather than panic. You know, am I going to get these crazy results? I mean, there's lots of good practical things you can do, like get those Pomodoro tomatoes. And some children need that, you know, like a wall planner and how many weeks you've got.
Yeah.
And there was a nice bit of research which I loved as well. Oh, I loved all the research. A teenager says that the slope is less steep if they feel that they're supported on the incline. So if they feel that you're supporting them,
Yeah.
and you can do it just in really practical ways.
But what if they're not doing any work? Like they've got exams.
Yeah.
And they're not, you can't force them obviously to work. What do you do?
Well, I think to a certain extent, you've got to honour the desire that you would love them to do some work.
Yeah.
And you can't shut that down. I mean, you're going to feel that.
Yeah.
Especially if you've paid for private school and you
No.
think, what
but-
was that all
yeah,
about?
yeah.
But I mean, again, you're right. You can't 100% force the outcome. And I think it's interesting. If they're of the mind not to do any work, I mean, most teenagers are very worried about the work and they do the work
it's
and they're
true.
super stressed. But
Yeah.
the ones that are not, you know, maybe they're going to be the
Entrepreneurs.
Bill Gates of the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but
That's
they're
one
probably the ones
narrative.
to you know, they're the ones to back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a sort of the ones that tick all the boxes are
Yeah.
possibly less, you know, so
Yeah.
slightly. And again, you know, dialing down the drama,
Yeah.
not necessarily giving it too much significance. Maybe they're not going to work now, but school has a very narrow curriculum.
No, I know. Oh,
Who's
God, I
to say
hate
that
it. Yeah.
they're going to find their passion?
Yeah, yeah.
And I hate the way it's always on such a timetable in terms of
Yeah.
age. I mean, it's so ridiculous. We go to university at 19. I mean, I just wasted my time and went to loads of parties. I mean, I would have adored to have done psychology in my 50s.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, I did history in my
Yeah.
20s and I practically got thrown out.
Yeah.
But, you know, so it's sort of like a lot of our systems are really quite tramlined.
Yeah, I know.
They really are. And they do not necessarily reflect diversity of talent or...
No. And also, you know, now it's all, you know, no wonder they're worried about jobs. It's all AI. We're all worried about jobs, and mind them, because
Yeah.
it's changing so rapidly. I'm just aware of time. We've probably got time for one more question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. What time is it? 7:20.
Can I just double check?
Yeah. What have I covered? What I haven't covered?
Oh, can I
Yeah.
ask a few other ones?
Yeah.
So, the other thing I wanted to ask is, how do I stop being?
Stop making it about you.
Sorry.
No, I'm not.
But I'm sure people will relate
I'll
to
charge
it.
you afterwards.
Yeah,
don't
what
you
but
do
worry.
other
I
people
do?
will have-
If she texts me this, no,
No.
go on.
I use ChatGPT for that.
Yeah.
You know, well, how do I be less judgmental in? Like, I really, really value exercise. It's my one thing, but it's
Right.
not because I want her to be a sports star, but I know how good it is for your mental health, physical health.
Sure.
But how do I give that message when they don't? She's not that into it.
Well, you're probably giving quite a strong message just by the fact that you like it,
Yeah.
and it obviously benefits you. So she may be able to see that. I mean, there is that counterintuitive thing about the more you try and force
Yes.
something to
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
sort of the less it's going to happen. So maybe it's taking a few steps back, and it's sort of what's going on for you that you feel that you want to sort of control her or sort of tell her what to do. And maybe you were controlled, or maybe your parents were bossy or something, or maybe... So one classic idea of control is that, you know, we get very controlled when we're young, and then we exercise that control, we internalise it, and we start doing it for ourselves. And one thing I think is very interesting about control is one way you control people is you make them right wrong. So you control someone by making them wrong. So if you don't do your exercise, you're wrong. You know, you're going to end up a flat slob, as it were.
Yeah.
It gets quite judgy, and it gets very right wrong.
Yeah.
So I suppose, you know, start with the self-awareness of just sort of watching if you're doing that. And actually, I think there is something very profound about acknowledging and allowing difference. And, you know, they are their own people. Back to that poem, you know, they're the fruits of life's longing for itself. And I think one really helpful image which we've got on the fridge is that you have a flower and a weed. And I see a flower and you see a weed, and you see a flower and I see a weed.
Yeah.
So she may be different to you.
Yeah, no, she is, absolutely.
And maybe that's okay. And maybe, again, more profoundly and positively. I mean, isn't that amazing? And wouldn't it be boring if she was exactly like you?
Oh, God, yeah.
So in a way, that's extraordinary that she is becoming her own person. And who's to say how she might get to being fit in a different way from you?
Yeah.
But probably you have got to work with those strong feelings of yours, which is just to allow them and be with them, some of the ideas we talked about before, but you can't force the outcomes. But also, another thing about this judging thing and controlling things is that the reason it's nice to step away from it is because it's not just about judging her. You'll be judging yourself. So when we judge others, we become more judgmental of ourselves.
Oh, God, yeah.
So really where we want to get to is some of the work around self-compassion. There's quite a lot in the book about how do we develop a sort of gentler inner story for ourselves.
Yeah.
Great person on that is Kristen Neff, if you know her work, Neff. Great TED Talk. And it's all about this idea of stepping away from some of these judgmental stories and controlling stories. And can I find compassion? Can I find compassion for her, but also compassion for me, that would really love that to happen.
Yeah.
And you know how great it is. And you'd long for her to know that too. And you can allow that and be with it and have compassion for that bit of you that wants it. But, you know, you can't force her.
I think what it is as well, because the world has changed so much. So it's not about kind of like, oh, we want them, you know, running and biking. And it's because, like, you know, just walking, you know, that simple thing, just walking to school, walking back, which they do. But it's like they get in. We would, back in the day, probably go out. Go out.
No, I know. Now they're just on their phones.
Play. So, and because we know like how detrimental it is to their mental health, like those simple acts is like, how do we encourage that without sort of turning them away? I mean, you've answered the question, but it's become more of a thing.
You're absolutely
because
right.
of the culture.
Yeah.
You know.
No, look, it's tough. It's absolutely, it is really tough. And I think it's probably never been tougher, which I think is why I wanted to write the book, because I do feel, and I've spoken to so many parents, and it is really hard out there. But I suppose what I would say is that things that are hard are always where we learn. So even though it's hard, and it's almost like turn it around, you know, this can contribute to your psychological growth and the amazing person you can sort of become through this process. But also always hold on to the fact that, you know, in the end, we want to be building this relationship with them.
Yeah.
And there is this chance to end up with this amazing relationship with another human being.
Yeah.
Who, you know, adult to adult.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't really believe in this empty nest thing.
Yeah.
Because you do still have a relationship. It's just a different relationship.
Yeah.
But it's not like you've lost your relationship.
No.
It's just, it's based on love rather than need. You know, they don't need you to drop you a whatever, wipe their bottom or make them pasta.
Yeah.
And I think half of the empty nest is you kind of, you know, mourning your youth.
Also your lack of purpose as well.
Yeah,
it's
there's
all
lots of,
about
it's
them,
not
isn't
just
it?
them going, it's like, oh.
And that's very wise, because that's the
Yeah.
self-awareness. And a lot of the book is this sort of separation about what's going on for me, what's going on for them. I heard a very interesting thing recently around some of the social media stuff, which is that, yes, of course we are worried what they're seeing online, and some of it is simply awful. But also half the time we just feel so rejected ourselves.
Yeah.
Because they choose their phone instead of us. So we've got to attend to that bit of us.
Yeah.
And that's just very interesting to keep figuring out, well, is this about me or what's really going on here? So having that kind of open curiosity to what's really developed, what's really happening for you.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. I think that's probably all we've got time for. Do you have any last?
No.
That was
You
absolutely...
had one last question, do you remember?
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to probably quite hard for you to answer it, only because it's probably too narrow.
Just try me.
But yeah,
I'm on a roll.
Just like in terms of like what you've learnt now, like what would be the one piece of advice you would have given your younger self, you know, after doing all this work as a parent? What would be the one thing you think, I wish I'd done that more? Or
I think I wish I just had a better time.
Yeah, that's
and just
great.
really enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Because that sounds selfish, but actually it's a great example to others, which is the more you can have a good time and be aligned and be calm and be happy, you know, we are then our best selves and we've got more to give. And I spent so much time worrying and stressing. And I think it's almost like this thing, like when we worry, we think we're doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
But actually, you know, and there's this sort of competitive worrying at the school gates. Oh, God, you know, blah, blah, blah. And we just sort of all But actually, what about let's just have a great time
Yeah.
and think that these teenagers are a bloody gift.
Yeah,
Mm.
lovely.
They are.
Yeah,
I've gone
they are.
goosebumpy.
Yeah,
Ah,
me
thank
too.
you.
But I really believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. That
Oh,
was
my
amazing,
pleasure.
Rachel. Thank
Oh,
you. And
well,
your
my
your
pleasure.
book,
The Gift of Teenagers. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So you've been listening to the Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. If you like the episode, please share, tell your friends, press like. What else? I don't know what else.
Subscribe. I don't
Subscribe.
know.
Yeah.
Love hearts. Apparently that's out now. Engagement. Apparently I've learned. Engagement now is all about the watch time.
The watch.
Forget
no,
about the likes and the hearts. It's all about the watch
whatever.
time.
Okay.
That's what I've been told.
All
so
we know
watch
is-
us. Just
yeah.
watch us for a bit longer.
Yeah. Thank you.